Welcome to the Samson Strength Coach Collective. On today's episode, we have Kristoffer Koerper, also known as Full Strength Father or Half Strength Father sometimes, if you know who to speak with. Definitely not lazy bones. He said it himself, but we'll never describe that or him as that. But he is the owner of Full Strength Father and facility design specialist with Samson. It's a fantastic conversation. I truly enjoy it every time I speak with him. But just getting to know more about his system, what drives the actual need for Full Strength Father and what it's done for other fathers within his community and within his group has been pretty amazing to hear. So I'm glad to share it with you all. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. What's going on, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners? On today's episode, we have, as I always say, the guests are special. But it's just tough for me to not say that this person is special himself. We have the owner of Full Strength Father and the Full Strength Father himself, also facility design specialist for Samson Equipment, Kristoffer Koerper. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, Connor. I'm excited to be here.
I'm incredibly excited to speak with you. We originally, just to give background context to our listeners, first met at CSCCA last year. I walked in, and all I can say was, if you're a Game of Thrones listener, a leaner version of the Mountain approached me and introduced himself as Chris. And then I found out immediately he also goes by Full Strength Father, which was incredibly exciting for me. So it was great to get to know you then. And then obviously we got to work together a little bit on some things through Samson. So I'm just excited to dive into what you do and what you're about.
That was a fun time and a very generous comparison, I might add.
No, but if people meet you, I'm serious. You'd be amazed. So, well, let's dive right into it. Can you just give us a background of your athletic career, lifting career, and then what led you to starting Full Strength Father?
It's so when I really developed a love for strength and conditioning through my pursuit of baseball. When I was 14, I found a little hole in the wall gym with an amazing strength coach, Rich Kale, who I credit to really lighting my fire when it comes to strength and conditioning. But my whole pursuit of time under the bar initially was to become the best baseball player I could possibly be. So the path for me has been intimately tied together, strength and conditioning with my athletic pursuits. So I ended up having a really good high school career and was a high projected draft pick out of high school. Turned down the 2007 draft to go on my mission for my church, a 2-year service mission. And naively, I thought that coming back after 2 years off, I'd have the same amount of interest in myself as a player, not realizing that 2 years kind of really put me off the radar when it came to professional interest. So I came back with that expectation, but then realized very quickly how much more competitive that next level is, especially after taking 2 years off. So I attempted to play at New Mexico State University after being off for 2 years. I was going up against an All-American first baseman, and it just wasn't going to be a situation where I'd play. So I went the JUCO route, played 2 years of JUCO ball, ended up playing 1 year at a Division II school, and then finished off at New Mexico State, full circle back to the Division I level. So my college career was, it's a story in and of itself, but I learned a lot from that journey. And through that whole process, continue to pursue my passion of performance and strength and conditioning, and just like the application of the principles that I had learned from a young age to be the fastest, best athlete I could possibly be. So, and after that, I actually started coaching people in college while I was playing baseball to earn extra money. So all of my experience has been in the private sector, working with people and really kind of just cutting my teeth right off the bat with just in-person work, So, but now I'm 36 and it seems like my baseball career is a long time ago, when I even think about it. And, my focus now has shifted from, of course, athletic performance as a collegiate athlete to now being the highest performing father that I can be for my family. And that's kind of the approach that I take with my current fitness and health as a father is very similar to the approach that I took as an athlete. and maximizing my performance. So,
So, what is the connection for you between the physical approach and your approach as a father? How do those things correlate, and how does one make you better at the other?
fatherhood done right is, I think, very physical by nature. Um, I have a young family, so my oldest is 7, and then I've got a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old, and they're all boys. And you met them briefly before we hit record, but they're very, very active. But whether or not your kids are really active by nature or not, just the fact that you're providing and leading your family on a daily basis requires, I think a solid base of fitness and conditioning just to have the energy to go through your day. And then when you get home, to have the energy to be engaged mentally with your family, especially after whatever happened at work. So I always say that the reason we train as fathers, the reason we get as fit as possible is so that we can handle the stress of the day, whatever work brings, and then we can flip the switch when we get home. And that moment when we walk through the door after work, that's when our day really begins. So we need to have the type of fitness level that allows us to do that, which it's no small task, especially, if you work a blue collar job or you're on your feet all day or, whatever it might be. So they're very tied, very, very tied together. And it's a crisis right now in the United States, in particular, with the health of people in general. But then you look at the health of men, and it's not only on the physical side, but the mental side for men's health and the suicide rates amongst men and all of the things that men face in general. And so I think obviously the fitness side and having energy is one piece, but also the mental clarity that you get from training. And we know from recent research that regular physical exercise is more effective than antidepressants at treating depression and anxiety and those kind of things. So very, very tied. I could talk for hours about the kind of the nuances of that tie, but yeah, it's for me. That's why I really got into Full Strength Father and started it was because we experienced a loss of a child between our 7-month-old and our 4-year-old. We had a miscarriage, and if it wasn't for physical training and what I was doing and my consistency and what I knew from sports performance and my background there, I don't know how I would have made it through that, because that's what really kind of kept me grounded, was just daily getting into the gym, moving, even though I didn't feel like it, but sticking with a plan and a structure. And so it really helped me get through it. And that's why I kind of turned my attention to saying, okay, if I've gone through that and it was that challenging for me, even with my base, what's it like for these other guys out there who don't have it? How would they be able to sustain through this? So um yeah, yeah, lots of thoughts there for sure. That's a really good question.
Well, to me, you've identified a problem, right? And I mean, even on a strength and conditioning level, I think about other strength coaches that I work with and the conversations that we have that, people aren't always going to be as vulnerable, right, on the microphone. And I appreciate your vulnerability. I really appreciate you speaking to that, because I think these things are incredibly important. And even on just a very micro level, myself as a fiance, soon to be husband, right? Probably the number one thing that has ever gotten in the way of our relationship has been my fatigue when I get home. Just not being able to deal with whether it's the physical or mental stress of my job, especially when we're in season. We talked before the show and just said, "How's everything going?" And it's tough for me to not answer that question and to say, "Well, we're almost at the end of season, right? We're almost at the time where I can, kind of focus more on my life outside of work," which is, not the best way to look at things, I believe, and I can feel it, and it's something that I actively try to work against, and try to make sure that I can be there for my fiance at the end of the day, because that support system is huge. And then you add in children on top of that. I can only imagine the amount of durability that you need as a father, and the amount of strength that you need to be able to lead your family. And so, I guess for me, when did it first occur to you that this was not only something that could be beneficial to you, but could help other fathers?
I was driving down, I still remember this, down Snow Road, which is on the way to that barn gym. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see some clips of that space. It's an amazing space to train. And I was just driving back. I was driving down to the gym, and I had an impression that I needed to invite a couple men to come train with me. It was very organic. Um, but this was shortly after that time frame of loss for us, where I feel like I kind of come out of that dark time, and I just had an impression. Hey, you need to invite a few men to come train with you, and so that's really how it started. So I put up a post on Facebook because that's where most of my local network is, and I had a few guys reach out, and then we started our little in person group where guys would come in and train with me, and started sharing a little bit of more fatherhood, directed content online, and then started kind of crystallizing my system, my personal system, and applying it to other guys from a training standpoint, and it just grew from there, man. So um, it wasn't really a calculated move, if that makes sense. It was just kind of a feeling, and these things have been on my mind and my heart for a long time, and I think you wouldn't have to look far in the strength and conditioning community of the fathers that you've talked to as strength coaches that would probably resonate with some of the stuff that I'm saying. Um, like, even though we're in the field constantly, we still need, as men, we need a sense of community, and we need a sense of accountability, and we need a sense of shared purpose and mission. And so the men that I brought in initially, they felt that, I felt that, and then it's just, you just realize there's such a deficit now in our society of men who are locking arms together to be better. You have settings where that's occurring, but it seems very kind of like scattered, and there's not as much structure to it as there used to be in society. So because we used to work together as men in the fields, or we used to you know defend our families together in the village or the tribe, if you go way back. And now it's like we're all kind of in our little silos doing our thing in different careers, and it's easy to lose that sense of team that we I think we really thrive in. I had that as a college athlete. I mean, I know you probably experienced that to a degree. That as a reference point of like what it's like to train in a team, what it's like to be around other men pushing for a common goal. But it's easy to be on an island, I think, after athletics or in different careers. So yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly, and that's immediately what I thought of when you bring it way back to sort of the tribe aspect, which I love. But I think about teams, and I think about how I grew up. Everything was done together with other men, or boys at the time. But it was something where there was a constant check in, and it was an organized check in with each other as well too.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that comes to my mind is there could be a difficult situation I approach. There could be, even we use it as an example, right? When I talk to my fiance at the end of the day about not having the energy to kind of focus myself on her as well too. Like, I find it hard sometimes to reach out to other coaches or my friends that I know, because I'm like, well, that person's probably got a lot of things going on that they don't really want to hear about this as well too. And I know those people would be there for me, but that's just where my mind goes. And then I think it's just because we don't have these organized check-ins. There's maybe one person on call every day, and then outside of that, it's other people I'll check in with on a monthly or bi-weekly basis, and it's just not this organized area where everybody can come in and train together, but then also uh, discuss issues or discuss things that have occurred and how they've approached situations. I think, like you said, we've lost that organization. What do you see? What have you seen that it's done for the other fathers that you worked with?
I think about one of the things I've said before with my men is we connect shoulder to shoulder as men, not face to face so much. It's very awkward for us as men to just sit across from one another at a table and just talk. At least it is for me. I'd rather talk while I'm hiking or training after a training session. So to to that question, what I've noticed is that because we get together and we train together physically every morning, um, we have conversations post training that are really meaningful, and guys will connect on different issues. Sometimes in between sets, guys will chat, but it's, dude, just like the physical side of our connection as a group. Sometimes you don't even need to say anything. You're just training together, and that alone is enough to clear your mind and boost you into the day and work through your own stuff. So like Wednesdays, which is today that we're recording this episode, we go on a ruck as a group. So we'll go hit a mountain out here, near New Mexico State, and we'll ruck for about an hour. Guys are talking about finances. Guys are talking about fitness. Guys are talking about relationships. So a lot of those conversations will happen in those sort of unstructured environments where we're just doing work together. And I think that alone is one of the most valuable things I've seen. But if you looked at like actual tangible changes that you could see in a guy's life, I've seen guys heal their marriages. I've seen guys just in our group alone. I'll just talk about our local group. We've got guys who have given up substances, alcohol, um, smoking, vaping, pornography. I've seen guys, we've got guys who have lost 40, 50 pounds, of course, as part of it, essentially doubling their strength in core barbell lifts. So there's so many physical, tangible, both physical and spiritual and mental tangible changes that are happening just because of the group camaraderie that it provides. So the group itself creates the environment that allows the change to happen naturally. Now, we do have a structure that we go by, as far as like just a reminder of who we are and what our purpose is in our core culture. And that's been intentionally designed. Like I shared with you, the code of full strength father: lead with integrity, provide with consistency, and protect at all costs. And so we have a brief 3-minute devotional every morning before we train on one of those subjects, given by a member of the group. Then we say a word of prayer and then we train. So there's like this, little, like you said, a check-in essentially of like the deeper purpose of what we're doing. But just that alone is just this little micro exposure to growth, micro exposure to community and to our tribe. And these are all guys that I'd call at 2 a.m., no question. Um, and they weren't handpicked per se; they were kind of organically brought in to the group. So I think about maybe for you, Connor, like who do you know if you started training together with a group of men, like say there's 6 guys, what that would do for your relationship with those guys, or if relatives that you have, if they had a core group of guys that just got together and trained, had a little bit of a structure. It was just awesome, so cool. So yeah, it's been. I'd say it's been deeply impactful for the members of the group in multiple ways.
No, I mean, I can just tell it. I can tell from your genuineness, right, and how you speak. I can tell exactly how it has impacted these men. But then I can also, as a man, identify with it as well too, right? And I can think about when I have training partners, my training's at a higher level,
Hmm.
and I think again, one of the things I really appreciate about it is it's not a focus on your professional work life all the time, because I feel like it's very easy, and especially within the strength and conditioning culture, to be like, well, what books have you read recently? And for me, a day wasted would be a day where I didn't try to improve my strength and conditioning career, whether it be improving my knowledge on something or spending the day reorganizing the weight room. But how much do I actually focus on myself as a person or myself as a significant other? And so I think I truly appreciate that aspect. Can you break down the code for me a little bit more? How you created the code, what are the specific components that you really like about it, and I guess essentially how it helps drive those devotionals in the morning as well.
Yeah, as with Full Strength Father, like the genesis of that, the code was I created that during that time of loss as a reference point for me. Similar to a lighthouse in a storm, if you're steering a ship, even if you're in the midst of those waves and the rain and the lightning and the thunder, just having that little light in the distance to chart the course gives you hope and gives you direction, even though you may not feel like you're close to shore. You're in the middle of that storm. The code for me was that it was, I have my faith and my beliefs and the texts that I reference and that I study. I like the Bible, and there are those core things that we can reference. Being a Christian myself, uh, being able to reference in life, but I felt like I wanted to write my own personal statement of what I was pursuing as a father, specific to me, and so that's where the code came from. And lead, provide, protect were the pillars essentially that I could identify from my own study as to what would make me a successful leader of my household along with my wife and like my specific role in that success. So leading with integrity, providing with consistency, and protect at all costs. We have a paragraph or so per each element of those codes of the code that we actually recite following the devotional, as part of that little routine that we have in the morning. And I mean, it's powerful. I mean, just I'll read a couple sentences from Lead with Integrity just for reference. And I can this will be on my Instagram. I need to post this for people to see. But like, here's an example of a section of lead with integrity. Um, I'm decisive. I take strategic action. I'm adaptable and humble. Do not allow my ego to rule my decisions. In places private and public, I am true. I'm engaged. I'm present. I serve with love and empathy. I lead by example. As the standards of the world decay, I hold the line. I lead with integrity. Again, that's just a little portion of it, but within each element of this code, we find a simple reference to different areas of our life that we can really lock in on and improve as a man. I mean, protect at all costs includes references to physical preparation, physical fitness and capabilities, being able to run, jump, sprint, carry, do the things that you need to do as a man, be physically capable and formidable, but also self-defense, first aid, those different tactical skills that you need in cases where you might need to protect your family or help others. Um, Provide with consistency has references to financial preparation and structure, like organizing your resources. So we rotate each week with a different focus. So this week for us is lead with integrity in our group. Next week will be provide with consistency, and then the week following will be protect at all costs. So we cycle through them. But we'll reference and we'll come up with a challenge for the week of what we're looking to do, and it just becomes like a little bit more detailed, I think, than what I previously shared as far as like how we implement it. But yeah, it's really the core of it was me just saying, hey, I need something to reference. And so I'd read it in the mornings before I'd start my day as a reminder to myself of who I needed to be, even though I didn't feel like being that, or I felt like I might be losing touch with that person because I was when you're in the middle of a loss or something where you're grieving or you're going through a really challenging time, it's easy to lose touch with who you are. And so having that reference point in the code for me was like, this is how I operate no matter what. Even if I don't feel like it, even if I can't remember what it felt like to operate this way, I'm just going to do the thing and be who I want to be before I can feel it. If that makes sense. So,
Well, that's how you're consistent.
yeah, for sure. 100%, man. Like, how often do you really feel like training hard? I don't know. For
Not
me,
very often.
it's kind of seasonal, man. Right? Sometimes week to week, sometimes month to month, but times of the year, I don't want to go to the gym, you know, initially, and then I flip the switch and just do it, and I always feel better after, but so much of athletic development and mental resilience and all those things we talk about in strength and conditioning and sports performance, it's just you do the thing, you execute it at a high level. The greats do it when they don't feel like it, and they do it at a high level when they don't feel like it. I mean, that's fatherhood, man. Like, to a T.
Yeah. I'm sure
I
you have
mean,
no choice on certain
it's
days. You
well,
just have to do it.
it's just relationships in general.
Yeah.
The people you probably think about in your life right now that you trust, that you would turn to in a time of need, are probably very consistent emotionally. They're not too high or too low. They always show up. They're there. You can talk to them. They're just consistent and steady. And I think that's a skill in and of itself.
Hmm. And so, if somebody's listening to this podcast right now and is thinking, well, I think I do fine on these things by myself. I think I have no problem maintaining my physical fitness and being a significant other or father. If they are kind of leaning away from what you are proposing, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say that it's actually extremely valuable to be able to do that, to be a lone wolf for a time. I think anybody who goes to an elite level in any area of their life has to realize that at some point you will probably be walking alone, whether it's for a week or two or a month or who knows, right? You're gonna have to sustain that at some point. But knowing what I know about the benefit and the momentum and the fuel that accountability and camaraderie and teamwork create, why wouldn't you leverage that to get to the next level in your life? It doesn't have to be with a lot of people, but having one or two in your corner that really push you to be better. Don't have to be in person necessarily, but I think, you know it's funny because like you'd think at first thought that I'd say, well, you got to have a team, you got to have people around you all the time. If I wasn't good at being a lone wolf, then I don't think I would be where I am right now. You know what I mean? Like because some people, they get too dependent on a group or too dependent on somebody to instill motivation in them. And I see this a lot with Gen Pop people. It's like, well, I can't go to the gym because my training partner didn't show up, or man, like we were supposed to hit legs today, but we didn't, he didn't want to show up, or I got tired or whatever. Right. So they just don't go. But the elite guys that I know, they go no matter what. And then other elite guys are kind of running the same path as them, and they link up because they're on the same path. So like, I don't need to motivate my guys to get into the gym because they're like me. We're just in the same place. Does that make sense? I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense.
It's a balance of both.
Yeah, exactly. And so then, maybe the 1 or 2 days in the week where I really don't want to go, I know they're going to be there. The odds are we're not going to hit that day at the same time, where one of us is weak mentally. So having the strength to be a lone wolf when you need it, and then realizing the performance and just the momentum benefits of a group and a team and leveraging that, I think that's the holy grail. It's being able to have both of those things going.
Because it makes me think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if all my guys quit tomorrow, I'd still be training hard. It wouldn't stop me. It would probably actually motivate me.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Because like coming from my family, we're very competitive. I've got 4 brothers. There's 5 boys and 1 girl, and just a very competitive mindset. But like, I kind of, there's a part of me that says if somebody quits or somebody, whatever it might be that could throw me off my path, I actually use that as like a motivation to go harder, to improve. But
what you mentioned, it makes me think of how I approached jujitsu when we were at Texas Tech, because I had a partner who was, very dedicated to it as well. And the thing that we always promised to each other was we'd kind of operate like phones didn't exist. We'd say, okay, we're going to meet at this class at this time. There's no, I woke up and feel tired, so I'm going to cancel. Like there's no ability to text each other or call each other and say, well, there's a last minute, I can't do this thing, right? And it was interesting because it made us more consistent in showing up for each other. But then on the times where one of us wouldn't show up, the other kind of acknowledged that, hey man, it must have been a really insane thing that happened to not allow this person to be here to train this morning. So I understand it, but it became a very continuous flow of training, and it just made us both very consistent. And so I appreciated it greatly.
Oh yeah. I'm going to steal that for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It works great. I mean, because how easy is it just to say, "Oh man, I woke up. I went to bed a little late last night. I woke up tired," and you can just text and just say, "Hey, I'm not coming today." So versus, okay, well, I have no choice. There's no phone that exists that I can call them on, so I'm just going.
You gotta send like a light signal or a smoke signal over.
A carrier pigeon.
Exactly.
I've fallen ill. I'm on bed rest.
Jeez. Oh man.
Well, let's break down the actual physical aspect of your training too, because I agree. I think the physical and the mental side are both very interconnected. What is the actual physical goal of Full Strength Father? And then can you kind of break down for me your GPP ranks that you sent over to me, and especially what those standards mean?
Yeah. So like the ranking system itself, I think is a really good place to go as far as my thought process behind training, which is general physical preparation, right? Like we use that phrase in strength and conditioning, is I think it's less well known, with amongst the general population. So as I've educated my guys on what this means, it's like, this is your base. This is your foundation as a human being. And so my training philosophy and approach is all based on that. I'm not worried about peaks at all. Unlike sports performance where we might peak for a specific event or season or work to peak in season or whatever it might look like based on the season or the sport, with fatherhood, I'm looking at your foundation year round. And so all of my ranks and my whole system for measuring our performance, essentially, like those metrics, is based on that foundation approach. So when I look at the lifts or the conditioning tests or the mobility tests or the longevity metrics that I'm tracking in this system, I'm looking at it and I'm framing it with my guys as like, hey, this is, you want to achieve a rank that you can sustain any day of the year. If you're not feeling 100%, if you're feeling 100%, like that's what you want. I always say you are what you are. So when we test our baselines, we usually test the full strength total, is what I call it, our testing battery twice a year. It's like you might not be feeling 100% when you go hit your mile, timed mile. I don't care. It's fine. Like, are you a little sore? Okay, cool. Like, I'm not worried about you peaking for that. So that at its core is like my philosophy is this general physical prep foundational approach. And so everything that my guys look at, they look at through that range, that lens. And so I've essentially created like a belt system for general physical preparation, which I think you're smiling because, it aligns really well with the practice of jujitsu and what that looks like long term. And so this is I call this a multi-decade approach to general physical preparation. I've got my ranks bracketed by age. So I've got, 18 to 25, 26 to 35, and so on, and then 56 plus. And so there's no end to the ranking system. You can do it till you die, and you can fight against the decay until you die. And the testing battery itself is, I had to get really I had to simplify it, at least for me, to be able to be executed at any sort of general commercial gym where there's not any exotic equipment. Because like initially I'm like, oh, we got to have stones, we got to have max distance or like a max weight 50-foot farmer's carry. And I was like, wait a second, not everybody has farmer's handles. Okay, darn it. What can I do for a carry? You know what I mean? So I had to kind of say, okay, well, typical dumbbell spread is going to run to like 110s maybe at a commercial gym. So if I go 70% of body weight, cool. That'll probably give us in that bell curve. Most guys will be able to pick that up and carry it with dumbbells. Sweet. So we'll do, you know what I mean? Like, so the testing battery itself had to accommodate the access to equipment that most men have. Anyways, not to go off on a tangent, but yeah, it's duplicatable and it creates targets for guys where when most approach training, the average American tries over 120 diets in their lifetime.
Wow.
I'd be curious to see what the stats are on like fitness programs or, exercise programs for people, because it's
At least a
probably,
trillion.
it's shiny object syndrome. It's like 12-week this, 6-week that, 75-day this. It's like, cool. Okay. What about the decades of training? Cause you and I both know, right? Like if you want to be elite from a GPP standpoint, it's consistent deposits for years in these different areas, and not just one area, but multiple areas. Like you got to have the ability to sustain cyclical expression, i.e. running or cycling or something like that for an extended period of time. You got to be able to have some quick contractions, create pressure, lift something heavy, move your own body weight through space, move your body around a static object, like a pull up or something. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot there you got to train when it comes to your system for general physical prep. But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total ranks ranging from what I call starting or gray all the way to gold or world class. And starting as somebody who's like really, 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 truly getting started with clear gaps in strength, conditioning, mobility, or blood pressure, resting heart rate. Like they're really baseline there. And then it goes to blue and then orange and then black plus and then gold. And gold, like the world class GPP ranks, border somebody who would specialize in that domain or that test. So take, for example, one of the tests that I have is a 6-minute concept 2 row for max meters. And if you look at the world-class score for the 6-minute max distance row, it's borderline somebody who would be specializing in rowing. It's not quite there because, again, we're looking at GPP, but it's borderline. Like it's getting real close. So if you were to pursue world-class ranks across the board in this, I don't even know if that's possible. I mean, I'm sure there's some freak out there who could do it. But even just getting the elite GPP rank is gnarly, because in order to get that black rank, you got to be elite in every category through all the strength tests, through all the conditioning tests, resting heart rate, blood pressure, and your entire mobility assessment has to be elite. So you can't have you can't have tight shoulders. You know, your external rotation, limiting factor might be the difference between you being elite or not. And so the fact that we score out mobility tests as part of this, like, forces these dudes to address these issues that they have from a mobility standpoint. It's a lot of fun. It's really fun. It's changed the game for me as I've, used it in my own training. I'm faster and stronger than I've ever been, and I'm 36. So I might not have the top end explosive, power that I used to, but just general physical prep, I could probably train that for 6 months and get back to what I was in college. You know what I mean? Just because the foundation's so good. So anyways, I can nerd out about it for hours.
I could as well. And I have further questions. So
go ahead, shoot. Yeah.
Well, how often do you test? How does the testing work as a whole, I guess? And then let's say somebody would be elite plus within a specific subsection and then maybe advanced in another one. Is there an overall total ranking that you have as well? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you break that down for me?
Yeah. So we test, initially I was going to look at it like see, here's the thing, this is in development. All of this is in development, by the way. I'm very open-minded with everything that I do. And so I actually showed this to the head strength and conditioning coach at Drexel yesterday on a layout console. And he was like, dude, I love this. This is awesome. I want to check it out. So I'm going to open this up to anybody who wants to look at it and give me feedback. Like, I am not married to this being like the end all be all. So that's, I think, a foundational point, but I think twice a year is good personally, but you and I both know that like a new trainee would probably benefit from a quarterly testing, scenario, because they're going to jump so fast in neurological adaptations or, aerobic adaptation, whatever it is, they're probably going to jump quicker than a guy like myself who's been training hard for, 20 plus years. So I think it just gets really complex when you start to add all these variables into that. But it might be nice to have the guys who are starting or, like the bottom two ranks overall that they can test quarterly. And then your guys who are advanced or elite plus, those guys test twice a year because they're just going to see slower adaptations. I don't know. I'm back and forth on that. But generally, I think twice a year is good, right? Like once in the summer and once in the winter. Like, January is a good time to test out, and then maybe like quarter 3 of that year or something like that. So just giving a good block of time. But so, and then, there's individual ranks. I'll list the tests for you, and we could tear these apart too, because I'm open to it. So we got all of the strength tests are 5 RMs. So we've got front squat, deadlift, conventional, incline bench press, weighted pull up. Then I have a max duration dead hang. Then I have a max distance dumbbell carry. That's 70% of body weight. Again, referencing like the dumbbell spread that most people would have access to. For aerobic, I've got 6-minute max distance row, 3-minute max calorie echo bike with a body weight adjusted score. And then I've got 10-second peak watt on an echo bike or assault bike, a mile run, a 400-meter run. Then I've got health and longevity, resting heart rate, systolic and diastolic blood pressure. And then I've got a mobility test battery that's kind of scored on a 0 to 3, 3 being maxed out, and that's in 0.5 increments. So those are the tests. So administering that testing block, or that testing battery, I should say, can happen in 1 week fairly easily, which is another consideration. I didn't want this thing to take 2 weeks. So you can just kind of weave it into training and knock it out. Doesn't make you too sore, doesn't beat you up too much. So, those are the ranks. Now there's scoring for for gray, blue, orange, and black in every age bracket. So, if you've got it pulled up, like you reference, let's take front squat, for example, the 26 to 35-year-olds, 0.62 times body weight, 0.81 times body weight for the blue rank, a body weight for advanced, and then 1.19, just under 1.2 times body weight for elite for a 5-rep max. GPP, right? I'm saying any day of the week you can go in and do that.
Yeah.
People freak out online when I posted it. They're like, what, dude, I front squat way more than that. I was like, first of all, read that it's a 5 RM, not a 1. And then second of all, realize it's a GPP rank. It's not like this was your all-time best front squat. Like, no, can you do this any day of the week? Well, you
Mm.
look at world class, 1.6 times body weight for 5. That's not a it's not a bad front squat for 5 reps. You know
No,
what I
not at
mean?
all. I mean, I can think right now I'd be at what? Yeah, that'd be about. No, I'm never mind. I'm going to show terrible math. Heavy. It'd be heavy. That's what it would be.
Well, see, and so I did it. It's relative strength, right? It's not pounds on the bar. So the system itself incentivizes you to be leaner and stronger by nature. The fact that we focus on those. So same thing goes for the body weight adjusted score on the 3-minute max calorie echo bike. It's like, if you're super heavy and you're pumping a lot of calories, cool, you're still going to get a lower score than a light guy who got less calories because we adjust it for body weight there. Because there is like the data that I could find on the echo bike, like there is a factor there, like a heavier guy can build their output more on that.
Absolutely.
So
That's the one thing I'll challenge my athletes on all the time. Is I'll always be like, I can beat you at the
because
assault bike no matter what.
because you're
Bigger
yeah.
guy.
No, you know what you're doing, bro. Trust
Oh,
me. I used to do
exactly.
that to my high school kids. I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'll get you a case of Bang if you can do 48 calories in a minute. That I knew that like even the best one would be like right at like 46 or something, and they just never get it. So yeah, it's super fun.
Well,
Um,
let me ask, and I hate to be that guy because I know it's more about the process than it is the rankings, but where do you fall?
I'm an advanced guy right now,
Very nice.
overall rank. So the if you're looking at that PDF I sent you, you can see all the individual color coded like individual ranks.
Yep.
So to answer your one, an element of your question, yes, there are individual rankings. So you can be like an elite guy in your strength and then be a baseline guy or a starting guy, in your conditioning. And that's the case with some guys like bias what they like. And so when you test them out in this, it shows so clearly. It's like, yeah, we already knew that you were slow and deconditioned and really strong, but now we can actually see it and you can actually get some targets in place. So, my guys who like come from like a Globo gym background where they just, bro split it, usually come out decent on the strength and then just terrible on mobility and terrible on conditioning because they just don't address it. And then my endurance guys who like to run and do triathlons or whatever will come in and they'll pop pretty good scores in the conditioning, but then they'll get buried by the strength. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh man, like those are gaps in my game. So if I want to be well-rounded from a GPP standpoint, I got to get stronger. Well, guess what happens when they get stronger? They actually get better at whatever they're pursuing from an endurance standpoint because they're just more robust. Connective tissue's better, joints are better, like all of that. So it's pretty cool how it kind of shows. And then, like the guys who are strength biased, they get conditioned and all of a sudden they're recovering better from their training sessions and they're pushing more weight. They get more out of every set because they're not gassed on a set of squats after 4 reps. You know what I mean? So they can actually like train harder. And it's pretty cool. So the to get it, like there's requirements for every rank to have an overall rank that is like either gray, blue, orange, or black. So the reason I am not an elite or black rank yet is because I have a weak incline press relative, and I need to get my incline and my pull up better and my mobility. Those are the only 3 tests that I have not gotten to elite yet in. So everything else I've hit elite. It's just that those are, and I know those are weaknesses of mine. And so now I'm addressing them, in my programming tracks, I have what I call the mass track and the gas track. And so it's just like guys can choose to have a strength bias session or conditioning bias session that day based on what they need to work on. So if they are conditioning deficient, when they go into the gym that day, they can choose the gas track because they know that that's going to be weighted to developing that versus strength. It's not, we're going to like not touch strength. We will, but it'd be the difference between like doing 2 sets of front squat just to touch it and then going and doing some mixed modal or like a 35-minute run versus somebody who's on the mass track would be hitting like 5 sets of 2 or some other variation that's going to develop their strength more. So anyways,
No,
yeah.
What I appreciate about it is that an elite stance is actually elite, right? I feel like it's so easy to look at it, like you said, from a micro level, 1 or 2 years, or I did this program for 1 or 2 months. So now I'm way bigger, I'm way stronger. I've done the things I want to do. It's decades, like you said. And so I appreciate that, the creator of the system is in the advanced, not the elite section, because to me, it's like, it's the truth of the situation. It's we're being realistic about where we actually are within these things. You don't just say you're elite just because you've been doing it for a year now, right? An Olympian doesn't become an Olympian in a year. And world class is not world class just because you are world class for, 28-year-old white guys named Connor.
Yep.
It's an
Yep.
actual world class global experience. So I really appreciate that about this system.
Well, it's yeah. Well, I tried to design it like, but I don't think you can ever fully remove your biases, but I built it like not with myself in mind, and that I was like, okay, generally, if outside looking in, if I looked at this with my background as a program or system that I'd buy into, what would I want to see? And that's, and so I do think there's still more to be developed here. I think this is the starting point for it. Because where my mind goes is like you could have sub um, kind of focuses or specializations for guys. So you could have like a power rank, like some power elements or some speed elements there. Because as you notice, like I have a 400-meter run and a 1 mile run. I didn't do, a 10-second, or sorry, I didn't do like a 10-yard, or vert or something like that, or broad. Like you could easily implement that in this thing for guys who wanted to kind of emphasize a little bit more of the athleticism side of things, maybe a younger dad who still wants to go dunk and do all that kind of stuff, which is cool, right? Like, but when I was looking at it through that lens, I was like, well, that kind of gets us away from the GPP, element of this thing. I don't know. I mean, you can make a case that the 10-second peak watt touches those capabilities, like your power output. That's kind of why I have that there. And I didn't necessarily do, short sprint or vert. But the thing is, if you're going to do those accurately, you got to have lasers. Really, you can't
No
hand
hand
time.
timing at
Yeah,
all.
and it's like, but you can hand time a mile run. You can hand time a 400, and it's okay, right? But if you start to get like a 5:10:5 or something, it's like, bro, how many guys have access to what we are so used to having access to? Like, I'd love to have like a mid-thigh ISO pull on force plates. That'd be like awesome, but I can't because nobody has access to them. So not even collegiate guys do, you know. But
I mean, I'm just imagining somebody coming up to their life fitness coordinator, like, "Hey, when are the force plates coming
yeah, exactly.
in?"
What do you think about the incline bench?
As a whole, if you are in what frame are you thinking?
Well, let me open that up even more. What do you like? What do you think about the tests in this battery?
I'm looking over them now.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, 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 no. I like it. Um, I think truly it does fit the GPP aspect. Uh, the only, but this is personal bias, right? We talk about removing biases. This is personal bias. Like for RMs, I kind of like a 3 rep max, but then I see your understanding of, well, it is a little bit more GPP based, so 5 rep max would work better. So
Dude,
I,
I was so torn between the two.
yeah,
So
exactly.
tell me why do you like 3 rep maxes versus five?
I just think they get you a little bit closer to what your true rep max is, and I think when I look at how I've tested myself or I've tested our athletes, a 5 rep max might give me a little bit lower of if I were to extrapolate it and try to get into a 1 rep max. But that's my bias because I like to use percentages based off of those, right? And so I'd prefer to know that we can use this specific number for our sets and reps for this upcoming week versus a 5 rep max. So I mean that would be my personal bias. And you want the 100% true answer? It's because I'm better at 3 rep maxes than I am at 5 rep maxes.
Same here, bro. Same here.
Yeah.
I got buried by the incline press. It was so embarrassing. I'm
I
not
have
I'm
no.
I'm not gonna share with you what my incline press was in public.
Okay, but
But
after the show, we can certainly discuss. But I mean, truly, I mean, I don't. I appreciate having you on as a guest, but I do have to say, being able to look at your full system. And as I'm looking at it now, I mean, I love it. And one thing I forgot to mention too with your code is I truly do love the I statements. And I love that you have to recite those things, because coming from a sports psych background, I am a big believer in your thoughts become your beliefs, which become your actions. And you can
Mhm.
change who you are as a human being by changing what you say to yourself. And I think it's so easy. I mean, on my micro examples, like yesterday, I was like, man, I'm low T today. Like, that's what the joke I'll kind of come up with is like, I'm low T. I'm feeling tired, And so I understand that. And now with my training, I'm able to easily kind of say, well, if I say that, I'm going to have a bad session. So let's turn on some Metallica, Gunna, whatever it may be for the day. And let's get excited and let's have a good training session. But at the same time, uh, I don't think it's really applied to myself overall as a human being. I think it's very easy to be critical. So I do love the I statements too, because I think it's true. Your thoughts become your beliefs, which become your actions. So what are you feeding yourself on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Low,
Well,
low T, high
low T.
stem, high
High,
stem.
low T, high stem. Yeah, that I'll tell you, that was me 1,000% yesterday. I was on the podcast just a couple weeks ago saying we need to give up the caffeine addiction for strength coaches, and I'm not pulling my own weight for that argument.
What's
So,
your go-to?
it would be a Welch's Grape Ghost. That'd be by far my
Let's
favorite.
go.
Yeah, I love the Welch's Grape Ghost.
So that's funny side story, dude. My the barn gym is on my parents' property down here in New Mexico. Long story, but I had a warehouse I was going to open up the week I was going to do my opening. We got shut down with COVID here, and we were shut down for 2 years. So I ended up like moving my operation underground, all sorts of stuff. It was really cool into the barn. But like my dad is what we call the warden at on the property because he's the regulator. So it's like a group of grown men in the barn training, and they're kind of worried about having the music too loud or something because it's like the warden's going to come down and pop us, just a bunch of prison guys in there. But my dad accidentally double subscribed to Grape Ghost order.
that's awesome.
And the other day he said that one of the nicest things he's ever said to me as his son, which was, anytime you need it, just come down to the house and grab a Grape Ghost.
They're so hard to find. I mean,
So
seriously,
I
that is
know
like one of the most incredible things possible to say.
I negotiated with Circle K, the management of Circle K on Main Street in Las Cruces to have them order Grape Ghost.
As you should, because you have to fight for it at this point. We have a place. There's another coach on staff. We have one place that always has it stocked. We call it El Dorado because like that's like it's the only place you can consistently find it. So I'm glad we can connect on this, and I'm glad you understand my plight because
We should have
it's
started
impossible.
we should have started the whole podcast with a discussion of ghost flavors.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, we
ranking
might
them.
have to bring that up to Andy and start a sommelier energy drink podcast as well, where we sample a different kind each time. Look at that. There you go. Face pop, another excellent flavor. Yep.
Well, what's your?
Oh,
Sorry, I know we got to get off, but
no, no, no.
what's your daily intake?
I try to cut to 200. That's my, if
So
I,
you're actually doing 6.
no. Guaranteed, I will have 200 per day. Now, I will say if it is a women's golf day, where typically in season right now we'll go up until about 9 o'clock with walkthrough stuff or 9 p.m. and then got to be up the next morning. Wake up later than you, but if I got to be up by about like
Not at the
4:45 the next morning.
CSCCA.
No, not at the CSCCA, which I do have to briefly tell that story as well.
You have to. You
I
gotta
have
you gotta let me let it eat, man.
to. But to answer the original question, if it's a day like that, then it'll be a 400 milligram day. Especially if we have a game that night, I try to be amped up. There's not much you can do as a strength coach during a game besides yell and clap, and so I try to make sure I'm energized for that.
400 mics, huh?
Yep, exactly.
But how many kilos are you right now, or how many pounds are you?
I'm 250 right now.
Oh, dude, your per kilo recommendation puts you easily at 600 cruising. Have you looked that up?
I haven't. I know there's a total allowance, but
yeah, I had to look it up to justify my intake. So now, if I'm popping 4 to 6, it's like, guys, I'm still below my per kilo. Like We're cruising.
We're cruising. I'm stealing that from you. You can steal the carrier pigeons, and I'll steal the per kilo.
I just drink Ghost for sport at this point, man. It's, it's more,
I mean, it's just fantastic. I would love to be sponsored by Ghost if Ghost is listening, by the way, if they want to sponsor the Samson podcast as well.
they recently got acquired for over $1 billion. Believe me.
Oh my goodness, man. Yeah, I saw they were paying the Cavender twins to do an ad for them. So I was like, all right, they've got money. They're doing well. But I do have to tell this story and how the half strength father nickname came to be. Just for a brief moment. At CSCCA, we were getting up early to do a workout. What was it, 6 a.m., I think?
Yeah.
And we all agreed that we'd get up and do a workout. Now, Andy impressed me, by the way, with his physical capabilities. I was impressed with Andy. But so we get up to go do the workout, and we were not downstairs. And so we said, you know what? He's probably there already. Because I remember you were talking about the running distance to the actual conference center. And then we go there, and then there was no full strength father. And so I obviously being on a team and just knowing you just for a couple seconds, I was like, I have to get him on this. And so we immediately called you the half strength father. But I'm still not convinced to this day that you weren't out just hunting deer with your bare hands or something. And you've just never told us what truly happened.
It's all an act. So when I'm home with my group, I just, I act really hard and I get up really early. But then when I'm on vacation, I just don't show up. I just ghost people.
As all good leaders do. That's how it should be.
It's a total facade.
But
Potemkin Village. Yeah. No, we're good, man. We locked it in after that. I haven't slept in since.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. And I can only imagine on your end missing one workout one time, and then immediately somebody you just met saying, "Yeah, he's the half strength father now."
Well, in Icelandic stone lifting tradition, right, full styrker, full strength, being able to lift the biggest stone. If you couldn't, you were considered half strength, and if you couldn't lift the lighter stones, you were considered lazy bones.
Lazy bones.
I think I may have been the lazy bones father that day. The covers the bed was so warm, and there were no screaming children.
It was a great Airbnb, knocking on my door. I will say that. Okay, well now lazy bones father. I'm certainly keeping that in my back pocket.
Yeah, I just gave that to you. You're welcome.
Thank you. No, that was actually a slam dunk that you just alley-ooped. I appreciate it greatly. I can only imagine like what was the movie Semi-Pro where they discovered the alley-oop for the first time. That's what you've done to me with lazy bones.
You got to make fun of yourself more than people make fun of you, and you're good.
Oh, 1,000%. And that's the only way you can survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on, man. Seriously, I appreciate you greatly. If somebody was interested, and if they, were listening to this podcast and it sounded appealing to them, and they wanted to learn more about you or Full Strength Father, what would be the best way to do that?
At Lazy Bones Father on Instagram.
That's gonna be my new. That's gonna be Strength Coach Lazy Bones. That's my new Instagram.
Lazybones.com.
Lazybones.com.
Oh no, I'm somewhat active on social, on Instagram at Full Strength Father, fullstrengthfather.com. I'm building that out as a resource. There's some apparel on there now, but no flags actually. Just flags.
There we go.
I need to drop some sweaters and some shirts and stuff, but fullstrengthfather.com. You can email me if you want like a printable PDF of anything we've talked about today at Chris at fullstrengthfather.com. That's a special email. Connor was asking.
Powerful email. You sent it to me yesterday. I said, how does one acquire such a powerful email?
Got to be born into it.
It's no choice. Genetics only.
You have some Viking in you, yes?
I have German ancestry.
Okay.
So German, Irish. Yeah, that's my background.
Sweet. We might get you one. We'll see.
All right, deal. Lazy bones.
I know. Yeah.
Well, seriously, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you greatly, man. Thank you for coming on, and for the listeners, he came on incredibly short notice as well. So that's how he earned back the Full Strength Father name in my book.
Yeah, he woke me up from my sleeping in to get on the podcast.
I highly doubt that. Nobody can see your Instagram story today, but I do know that you were rucking.
Rucking it up. I appreciate it, man. This is a good talk.
Absolutely, and thank you to Samson as well for connecting us. So.